Hey guys, it's Janie and welcome back to Wait, There's More. In today's podcast episode, Erin will be sharing her story, so I hope you guys enjoy.
And we're back.
Like we never
Half
left.
time.
Like we never left. Okay. So how did you get in initially to throwing the javelin?
Soccer was my main sport.
Okay.
Loved soccer.
Yeah.
Wanted to be a professional soccer player, go to college for soccer, all that. And just loved that grind as well. That hustle and
I played soccer growing up too, so I get it.
Yeah. And then in 7th grade I tore my meniscus in my knees. Had to get knee surgery. And that was a very big pivotal point in my life where I really turned to God as well. Like I'd grown up in a Christian household, so I would always go to church on weekends.
Right.
Didn't always like it. A lot of my life I didn't like it. Since then I've grown to love it. But yeah, so the night before my first knee surgery, I was just praying to God, saying my usual prayers. And then I was pretty scared because I was like, I gotta go under anesthesia and everything, and just wasn't really sure how it was going to affect my future. I was a big worrier, a lot of anxiety when I was little about, future and everything of how's this gonna affect my goals for playing at the D1 and professional level and everything. And I remember I was just talking to God, like he was my friend, you and me talking right now, and I was just like, God, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm pretty scared for this, And then went to bed, and then in the middle of the night I wake up randomly, and I roll over and I see this big shadow in my room, and I'm scared. I pull the covers over my head like I usually do when I get scared and think the boogie monster's in the closet or whatever. And then all of a sudden I get this feeling of why am I scared right now? Which never happened before. Usually I just stay under the covers. So then I roll back over, and right in that, I have a little chair in my room, and that was right where the shadow was. And I see Jesus' face sitting right there. And in that moment, I knew everything was going to be okay. With the surgery, but beyond just the surgery, that my life was going to be okay as long as I remained in Jesus. It was the coolest experience because it felt like Jesus had really seen my whole life flash before his eyes.
That's wild.
And it was like, hey, it's going to be okay as long as you remain in me.
Right.
You're gonna have the trials, you're gonna have those peaks and valleys, but I got you, man.
Just imagine Jesus in the corner of your room saying, I got you, man.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
And then so I roll back over
and went back to sleep. That's awesome.
And then I wake up in the next morning and I'm like, oh my gosh, how stupid am I? Jesus was right there and I didn't even say hi. I was like, wow.
Yes.
I could have asked him anything.
I probably would have thought the same thing. I'd be like, what was I doing?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's
but
crazy.
I guess he's with us always, so.
True.
We can talk to him whenever.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But that's
so
cool.
Then got that knee surgery.
Right.
So then I get placed on, well, I decided to try out for, well, not try out, but just join my middle school track and field team to try to get back in shape for soccer.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing all their workouts. And then one day there's a meet and no one's throwing the javelin.
Right.
They're like, hey, you want to throw it? And I'm like,
I don't know.
Yeah, I want to throw it.
That's awesome.
Big spear. I'm like,
yeah,
that looks
cool.
fun.
Let's just chuck something across the field.
Yeah. So then I qualified for the little middle school state meet.
Awesome.
Get to state meet, and the way javelin works is there's a track runway, and then there's a line at the end, and you throw it into a field. But apparently you can't cross the line. I didn't know that at the time.
Oh no!
So I threw it, and it would have won.
Oh, but it didn't.
It didn't. Because
because you disqualified yourself by crossing the line.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you want to know why?
Why?
Because I was trying to be nice for the officials.
Of course.
After I threw it, I ran out to try to get my javelin, so they didn't have to walk it back in for me.
Wait, that's why you got disqualified?
Yeah. Yep. I was
just
trying to be nice.
When you threw it, it was behind the line.
It was, but because
you ran out after it.
Yeah.
Wait.
Regardless of if hit,
That shouldn't
you
have
can't.
mattered.
I know. I learned the hard way.
Oh, no. Well, I guess if no one told you, you didn't know.
Yeah.
No.
So I got 5th that meet.
No. When you could have won.
Yeah.
Okay.
But honestly, that felt like a bad moment too, because if I'd won, maybe I would have just been satisfied and be like, yeah, I don't need to do this again.
Right.
But
Yeah.
because God knows how competitive I am, and
Right.
He knows how unsatisfied I'd be with getting 5th.
Oh.
He was like, gonna place this hunger to win.
But give you the confidence to know that you could have won.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's good.
Like you did good enough to win.
Yes.
Except you didn't, so you got 5th.
Yes.
And then you wanted to prove to yourself that, like, I am that good. Like, I'm gonna go do it again the right way. And, like, and win it. I'm gonna go win it. That's actually a really cool perspective.
Yeah.
Wow.
So then I pick it up in high school.
Okay.
And the rest is history.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So that's how I got into throwing the javelin. Big spear.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're from Massachusetts.
I am. Yeah, up north.
Yes.
Cold.
So you went to high school up there, middle school, all that.
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome. And so you reached out to some colleges, they reached out to you, you got recruited to Brown. You ended up choosing Brown, right?
Yes.
So why did you want to go to Brown specifically?
Yeah, so a little bit of a funny story too about how I actually got recruited, because this whole process was honestly, like, I look back and it's like God's fingerprints are just all over it.
Yeah.
Because I actually recorded, there was a video of me throwing that one of the other schools I was talking with wanted, but it was too big to send over text and email and everything like that. So they were like, oh, upload it to YouTube and then just send the link to YouTube.
Okay.
I mean, send them the YouTube link.
Yeah.
So I put it on YouTube.
Right.
And then the Brown coach came across it on YouTube.
Just saw it.
And
reached out. And he was like, wait, I
So-
saw you throw the jab on YouTube. Are you still interested in schools? Like, are you looking?
Yeah.
We would love to have you come to an official or something.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
And so you went and visited and just fell in love with it.
Yeah.
Because that's a very academically, like, rigorous school, right?
It was, yeah. And it was kind of funny because at the time, too, I was just so, like, my mom will say this, too. I was very one-dimensional.
Okay.
It was like sports or nothing.
Okay.
And for a while, like, that's sort of the mentality that I thought I needed to have to become, like, the best athlete ever, was, like, all in, no other priorities.
Yeah.
And then Brown, really being injured at Brown and COVID and, like, not competing, it really opened my eyes to, like, everything else that's, like, occurring in the world and like helped me find other passions as well, and really made me realize that, you know, it's not just all in or nothing.
Right.
You can be all in track, but you can also be extremely passionate about, you know, human rights and wanting to get involved in, like, being, like, the best like, student you can be as well. And it's just like everything that you do can be a form of, like, worship to God, and, like, God gives you a variety of talents and calls you to, you know, do the best with all the opportunities He's put in front of you.
Yeah. That's so cool. So you went to Brown.
I did.
And got your undergrad in
political science.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, that makes so much sense.
I took an international relations class and just fell in love with learning about the different problems going on in the world.
That's awesome.
Sort of taking an entrepreneurial mentality to try to come up with some ideas to solve them. And yeah.
And so obviously you faced a few challenges while athletically trying to compete in college, right? And so you briefly mentioned about your shoulder, right? Your shoulder injury.
Shoulder, elbow.
And that was your
your
first one. Just all of the above, trying to throw the jab.
It's easy to say what I didn't.
So you competed in one full season over the course of your 4 years, or wow.
Yeah, because my freshman year, it was, like I'd mentioned, the first meet of the year, my second throw, and just blew out my elbow.
It really sucks.
That was done.
Dang.
And then next 2 years with COVID, so
right.
didn't really compete. And then
your senior
year. Yeah. And then that was also like a lesson of just the dependence on God. Like I feel like through sports, God's really forced me to learn how to be dependent on him.
Yeah.
Because when I got to like senior year, I was going through the whole recruiting process again. So it was just like I was back in high school, going through it.
Going through
but
visits,
I was like,
emailing coaches.
Yeah, but I was like, I don't have any like great marks because I haven't been competing.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how am I going to get into the schools that I want?
Right.
If I haven't competed. And it was very stressful.
Yeah.
But God provided.
God said, well, you have an opportunity here at Georgia.
Yeah.
That's
and my
so
senior
cool.
year season was a very full circle moment. And I ended up breaking Brown's school record at the same meet that I blew out my elbow my freshman year.
Wait, that's so redemptive.
It was such a full circle moment.
I love
it was just like, God was so good.
I love
he is so good.
How those little ways that God just completely redeems you, you know?
Yeah.
Where it's just like,
He's not good.
These are like the mental memories and feelings you have at this one meet, right? From all those years ago. And then to see how you came through in that and how God said, I'm going to come through for you, right? And you threw one of the best distances, I guess, you've ever thrown. I'm not very great at the terminology of javelin, but I'll get there. Yeah, and so then you had some marks that you could get recruited on, and that's pretty awesome. Wow, that's so awesome. And so then you decided, you know, I'm going to go to Georgia, and I'm going to just do some stuff in grad school and try to use all of my eligibility. I remember meeting Erin, and she was like, oh yeah, I'm here this year, and I don't know, we'll see about next year, probably next year too. And then you were here the next year, and then it's like, okay, well, usually 6 years is kind of it for most people who end up going and competing in grad school.
Yeah.
And then Erin was like, well, actually, I still have eligibility. So I also just really love this place. I love Georgia, so I'm just gonna stay. Yeah. And is that kind of just what happened?
Basically, yeah. And here we are.
The crazy trials you experienced with your injuries just didn't completely deplete your confidence in like what you can do in your sport, you know? That's so cool to me.
Yeah.
Because it can be very discouraging.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like you know that.
Oh,
just as well as
I do. That's
anyone.
why I'm saying that.
Yeah.
It's so discouraging. But that makes it all the more encouraging to see you still here as a 7th year, still competing in a D1 NCAA sport. Literally in the SEC. Like, it's pretty wild. Yeah.
And I'll say, like, I think the key to it all, too, is just remaining in communication with God.
Yeah.
And being like, God, here's where I'm at. Because there was times, too, you know, because I hurt my elbow, and then I hurt my shoulder.
Yeah.
And then I was like, God, I keep getting hurt. And, like, I haven't even competed in college yet. Like, I thought you brought me here to compete, and I haven't competed. I was so confused. And I remember just sitting down one day, like, reading my Bible and just talking to God and honestly just venting to him and be like, God, I don't understand what you're doing. Honestly, frankly, I don't really like it very much.
Honestly, I don't like it.
Yeah.
If you want my opinion, God, you know it now.
Yeah. Now I love it.
Right,
you know, see everything that's happened.
Yes.
And why I had to go through all that. Yeah, so I was like praying to him one day and I was like, do you want me to like quit javelin? Do you want me to try to find a different sport? You know, I was like, maybe I can be a multi, you know? Like, I love to run and do all these other things. And then as clear as day, God told me, like, he was like, you know, good things come to those who wait. Just stick it out.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, I'm gonna trust you.
I'm gonna trust you.
And it all worked out.
I love your story, and it is so inspiring. And it's definitely unique. And one thing I was thinking about is that specifically in throwing the javelin, you only have the outdoor season. Like, you don't compete, obviously, in the fall, you don't compete in the winter, it's just the spring. / I guess summer if you continue in the postseason. So it's saying, like, in throwing the javelin, you only have so many chances to prove yourself, right? To continue to, like, go to the next meet and get another chance. That's definitely something I see, especially at this school. You kind of have to prove yourself in order to get more chances. And as a javelin thrower, you only have the outdoor season. So, like, if you missed a lot of seasons in your undergrad because of COVID and all of that. And so that just makes it all the more impressive that when it mattered, that you performed under that pressure, right? But you knew that the Lord was on your side. And even if you hadn't performed, even if you hadn't been able to do that, that would have still been God's plan for your life. And you knew that at that moment, which is so inspiring.
I think because I looked at myself, who I was as a freshman versus who I was as a senior, and it was like a totally different person. And like, had you put me in that position as a freshman, like, who knows what would have happened. Like, I probably wouldn't have been able to handle it. And like, just knowing, like, when you know that regardless of circumstance, like, God still loves you, and that your identity isn't in who you are as an athlete, but your identity is as a child of God, like, it's just so much more freeing to then go out and just compete out of love instead of fear.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. That's so true. I love that.
That was something I also had talked to God a lot about, of like, I was almost fearful to have that mentality of, if I'm not like all in on my sport, like, I guess it made me nervous that if I lost after a competition and I didn't feel so sad, I was like, oh, is this making me a weak athlete? Is this making me less competitive? And I was like, almost having the mentality of having a relationship with God is actually making me less competitive and a weaker athlete.
So
if that makes sense.
No, that does make sense. I definitely feel that in the aspect of like, okay, well, whatever's going to happen is God's plan, right? So it doesn't matter if I do good or if I do bad, or if in practice it goes this way or that way, because the Lord is still sovereign and still good. And all of that is still true, right? That doesn't make you a weaker athlete, but it's definitely, I can like see how that would be a thought process.
And then I remember like bringing that to God one time too, and then that's when I knew like my sport was my identity. Like I still hadn't fully surrendered it to God yet, because I was like, wow, the reason why we're in these positions to be athletes is to glorify God. Not the opposite,
not the other way around.
We're not here to use God to make us better athletes. We're here to use our sport to show light into who God is and grow our relationship with God. Sports is our vessel, not
sports is our vessel
and who we are.
But that is definitely where the identity comes into play, and we should unpack that more in another video for sure, because there's so much more to say on that. So stay tuned for sure. But I just love your story, and that's so cool.
Thank you. And I'll say one more thing attached to all that is, I found that having a relationship with God doesn't make you any less of a competitor. In fact, I'd argue it makes you even more of a competitor.
That's so
because
good.
of like what we were talking about earlier with that pressure of being able to just compete freely and like without worry. Because you know, when I came back, you got to trust your body to be able to like hold positions, and you know, you've been there before too, like after injury coming back, it's like, oh, I got to trust my body again. But then
it's hard to do when your body keeps failing you.
But then when you can put that trust in God and be like, I'm gonna go out and give it 110%, God's going to step in and be like, regardless of what happens, like God's got you, and that's part of God's plan. So it's like you can go out and give that 100%, and like you don't have to worry about all the other stuff going on, because that's like for God to take care of. And it just helps you just freely and without worry and that stress to compete.
Yes. I was talking to my roommate earlier today, and she had this really cool analogy of when you give all of your anxieties and stress to God. It's like when you have a really big assignment to do for school, right? And it's taking you a lot of time, you put a lot of work into it and effort into it, and it's due at like 11:59, right? And so you finish the assignment and you turn it in, you feel kind of like the kind of it's when you submit the assignment, you know, you're submitting it to the teacher, So you have no more control over how the assignment is graded, right?
Yeah.
And whether you think you're going to do good or you think you're going to not do good, there is a pressure that is released from you because it's no longer in your hands. And that's like when we submit ourselves to God, right? We're submitting it. This is all my roommate. This is not even me. When we submit ourselves to God, shout out Audrey. Shout out Audrey. We're releasing all of our stress, all of our worries, and all of our work, right? We're submitting all of the talent that He gave us to perform. We're submitting that to Him, right? When we go out and we perform for the glory of God, instead of we're performing for our coaches, we're performing for ourselves to get a PR. When we do it under His name, we're submitting it to Him. And there's so much peace that comes on you after you give it up, right? Which is just, so that's a little nugget there.
Wow, that's good.
No, it's a cool analogy. But what a great story.
Thank you.
So inspiring.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, for listening to this episode where Erin shared her story. In the next episode, we'll be going over my story. So stay tuned for that, and see y'all next time.